Greetings, brothers and sisters. Happy to be here tonight, and so happy that you can join us for the very special teaching we have tonight. We want to talk about the bloodstained red carpet of England and America, and we want to take our time to explain this and tell you how these things work, which is a further teaching, an offshoot of the Illuminati teaching. It's a further teaching to let you know what kind of position and what kind of shape we're in. We're in bad shape. I'm sure you would agree that we're in bad shape today. And so we want to be able to talk about that, talk about what's happening in our community and what we have to do about it. But first, we need to understand exactly what's happening. So we're going to take our time on this subject, brothers and sisters. And our desire and our prayer is that the brothers and sisters will certainly get up into it. Thank you very much. We'll certainly get up into it so that we could understand exactly what's going on. And I want you to understand that the fabric of this nation is in trouble. The very fabric, the existence of it, because it's being attacked. A war without and a war within. We want to talk about that tonight. So I hope you're ready. I hope you come prayed up. Because this is going to be a very heavy subject, and we intend to get all the way into it. All the way into it. When we talk about the blood stained carpet, we're talking about every incident that has happened in this country and also in England to quote unquote save it or to continue the bloodstained system we have that is as much an ingredient of the bloodstained carpet. The bloodstained carpet is a show of not only appreciation, but a show of proof for all of those involved that they support the system that we have now. And the system is tied to them and they're tied to it. And there are two governing factors of this system, as I told you before, brothers and sisters, and we have to understand. One of them is the leader system that has to be bagged up, right? The leader system, not the leader, but the leader system, right? The rules of engagement, the rules to be kept in place to keep the machinery of oppression running safely and running unobstructed, carefully, to keep the course of this nation, right? To keep the course of this nation, almost like driving a ship. It's almost like driving a ship. So I hope I haven't confused anyone. So brothers and sisters, we should be looking at assassinations, right? The red carpet is all about assassinations. There have been many assassinations that happen. In this country to keep it on the course that it's on. So all assassinations associated with America, because we have to say that assassinations associated with America. And after that, we'll say assassinations associated with the Western global power structure. So we have two things going on. All associated with nations, associated with, we could say associated with America and England. So these assassinations are plenteous, and they should involve all of the major leaders around the world. If that country was a satellite for America or England, you know we keep saying satellites. what does a satellite do? Satellite keeps its watch, right? It keeps watch on areas. It gives a panoramic scan, right? And it gives a particular scan. It gives a micro scan. It gives a macro scan. So, say satellite, you mean something that watches, just like Ukraine. Ukraine is a satellite for America to keep watch on Russia, right? And this is a political game, a nationalistic political game, the game of chess, right? America's made a move, right? They've taken a pawn. In other words, taken a certain area, put a leader in power that really has no real power, right? Because the king or the leader of Russia is Vladimir Putin. But they took a pawn. When they say pawn, this is talking about chess, a game of war. They took a pawn and put him over Ukraine and put support and monies in Ukraine to keep an eye on Russia, right? But the jig is up because Vladimir Putin saw exactly what was going on and responded against the Russian that had betrayed the ideas and the engagement of Russia, and had betrayed the throne of Russia, so to speak, or the war code of Russia. So we have to pay attention to everything that's going on. So we say assassination associated with America and England, brothers and sisters. We have to say it that way because you're speaking to our governing power. So we're going to explain what chess is, right? Meaning of chess, associations, assassination associated with England and America. We're going to discuss all of those things because all of them are very, very, very important. We should say significant assassinations, and we're going to get a chance to talk about all of these significant assassinations. So these assassinations could have happened anywhere. We intend to put these things down. Who was the person that was assassinated? When did it happen? We intend to put all of these things into play because these are associated with whatever the governing power was. So we have to be wise and keep watch of these assassinations, right? Because what we don't learn from in history, we're doomed to repeat it, and that's the most important lesson here for us to learn. That you have all of these assassinations and who was associated with these assassinations. We have to be wise about it, brothers and sisters. You and I have to be wise because a lot of these assassinations happen right under our nose. So we have to be wise to what's going on and what's happening. And I want to start from the top level to tell you that there are certain things in place. Certain things are in place, brothers and sisters. And so knowing that the system is a well-carved web, just knowing that is something. And we'll start from the very top of presidents that have been assassinated. When you look at the assassination of President Lincoln, and you and I will get some understanding of how serious the architects of this nation took the rules, right, of engagement. Because if you're going against American policy, American regulation, American Constitution, I want you to understand that this is an act of war, and that treason is also an act of war. Now, when it comes to political parties, it's up to that party to handle its own business. It's up to that party to handle its own business. Peace and greetings, scientists. Peace and greetings. Salam alaikum. Peace be unto you. Glad to have you with us tonight. And we have to understand. We have to have some understanding of what's going on. We have to have some understanding. You and I have to have some understanding of what's going on. What do we mean when we say the blood-stained carpet of America and England? What do we mean? right? I want you to understand, and this is very important that you understand, that the presidents, all of those that didn't go along with the game plan, that were independent thinkers, right, who could make decisions to either stagger or limit the power of this system of oppression in America, that I say to you again, is needed, because the minute you destroy the capitalistic system, America is over. Because, and you have to understand what that is, what that means. You and I, as black people, are the cash crop of the capitalistic system. You're still in slavery. I say that again. Still in slavery. The Civil War never ended anything. It ended the physical act of slavery, but it never took out the labor market. And you and I are under the bondage of a labor market, under the bondage of a tariff system, which is taxes, right? We shouldn't, because of our inception, we shouldn't even be responsible for taxes, but we'll pay taxes because these taxes are levies against wealthy interests of those who own the slave markets, who own property, right? Who still own property, which controls your property, your lands, your houses. Because the minute that you own something, you shouldn't have to pay taxes on it, but you'll have to pay taxes on it based on those who own more of an interest of the town you live in, the jobs, the utilities that you use, and so on and so forth. This is why you have to pay for water. You have to pay for garbage. You have to pay for these things. You have to pay for them because they're in use. Now, really, you shouldn't have to pay for water because it's a natural resource. But the individual that owns the land that the well is on, or the land that the piping for the water is being used, the treatment system, they're the ones that can charge you. They can literally charge you. So instead of the city, and it depends on commonwealth, keep that in mind. Instead of the city giving you water, they'll give you access to water that is owned by the individual that owns the land that the processing unit is on. And that's the way it works. So we have to understand that what we're involved in today. You and I are involved, right, in a constant class struggle, a constant struggle between the working class and the no class, constant struggle under the working class and the lower working class, a constant struggle between the rich and the poor, the middle class and the wealthy, right? Right? Because there is a difference. It's a difference in the rich and the wealthy. There's a big difference. As much as there is a difference in the working middle class and the middle class, you are in a constant struggle, brothers and sisters. And you'll continue to be in a constant struggle until you learn how to get out of it. Now, you can get out of you never get out of the nationalistic struggle because it relates to race. So you'll never get out of that. And that's important for you to understand. You'll never get out of that. Very, 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 very important for you to understand. But, however, you can get out of the level of oppression that you're in. You can get out of that. You can get out of that, but you'll never get out of oppression itself, because there are, and as we've seen, there are wealthy blacks that are still oppressed by the system of oppression in America, that are still under the crippling yoke of the system of oppression in America, because that system is tied to what? We have to understand what it's tied to. That system is tied to racism, and white privilege is tied to that system. So it is foolish for you to believe that the white man as a whole is going to fight against the system of racism, which gives him privilege so that you could be free. And somebody's saying, what does this have to do with the bloodstained carpet? I'll tell you, because America and England has done what it takes and shedded the blood of your ancestors and mine, right, as a totalitarian dictatorship to guarantee that these things set in place will stay in place. And you have field Negroes who have seceded, and house Negroes who have seceded, who have made a bond between themselves in the Boule house, right? In the black Boule, right? Those that have the blood of the master have reached this brother that have come from meager means to make millions, and sort of teaching them the ropes and teaching them the game. So I don't care how nationalistic they are, the minute they shake hands with the black capitalists, that's the Boule system, the black capitalists, then it's all over for you and I. You have to understand that. So the assassination of presidents, right? The red carpet is a carpet, and I want to type this, right, of assassinations. The red carpet is a carpet of assassinations, and you and I have to understand that. We have to be fluid on it. If we don't understand that, then we don't understand history. If we don't understand that, we'll never understand the revolution. And if we can't understand the revolution, we'll never understand freedom, justice, and democracy. And we certainly would not understand liberation, because you and I have to accept the weight of our own liberation. If you remember, anybody that's familiar with the study of Jesus, study of Christ, will tell you that he said he had the weight of the government on his shoulder. In other words, he had to go against the government, right? He had to go against it. So the red carpet is a carpet of assassinations. He had to go against the government. What happened to him? He was assassinated, right? You say crucified, it's still assassination, brothers and sisters. Still assassination. So you and I we'll take our time, and we have work to do on this matter. And my desire, my prayer is that you will join me and get in the mindset of what we're talking about, because all of this is building a foundation for what is coming up against us. Now, that Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at the Ford Theater in Washington, D.C. This assassination, I want you to understand, was not done by somebody in the South. It was done by somebody in the North. For all of those who believe that just because a northerner, a northerner who's white, will speak against this racism that's found against us nationally. All of you all that think just because a white person from the North, they're not racist, has another thing coming. John Wilkes Booth was a Confederate sympathizer. He lived in the North, but he was a Confederate sympathizer. And the best example of a nationalistic racist stand, or the proof that you have more whites that are racist than black, the best example of that is the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. The second best example of that is the assassination of John F. Kennedy. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that tonight so you can get an understanding. Now, we're also going to talk about nationalistic assassinations, right? Because these are important. These are very, very important, because it talk about the death of leadership, not just black leadership, but white leadership. See, when you got the nation that in America that we live in, when you got this kind of nation, brothers and sisters, trying to tell you the best advice that I can give you, and the greatest gift that I can give you, is for you to accept that anyone that goes against the fabric of this nation will be stopped. They don't matter. They don't mind you talking about equal right. You can talk about that, till you blue in the face. But the minute you start making a difference, right, on that scale, then you become a danger, not just to whites. I want you to understand the assassination of black folks is done or committed by the Boule black, the black sympathizers of the rules of engagement as it relates to America. So the house Negroes and the sellout field Negroes are the ones that will kill their own black people who's going to get in the way of their money, right? Didn't you hear? And I hate to use this example, but this is one of the clearest examples. We're going to talk about it tonight. Didn't you hear the brother say, get your hand out of my pocket before they killed Minister Malcolm? Get your hand out of my pocket. In other words, you're in the way of my money. And I won't let you destroy that. I won't let you destroy that. Some people are concerned about freedom, justice, democracy, liberation, as long as they put money in their pocket, right? And they will kill you if you get in the way of their money. They will kill you for prosperity. They will kill you for fame. They'll take you out. They'll kill you for wealth and riches. They'll take you out. Get your hand out of my pocket is a symbolic suggestion that you're getting in the way of my money. I'm not going to let you stop me from gaining this money. See, that was the whole purpose, the whole role play. You have to understand that, brothers and sisters. You don't understand anything else. You have to understand that. The informant and CIA agent Gene Roberts was in on it. James 67X was in on it. I hate to say it. Benjamin 2X, Benjamin Goodman, the very one that introduced Minister Malcolm, was in on it. Sister Shirley was in on it. Yeah. Malcolm only had one real soldier. Malcolm only had one real soldier. It's the man that gave him the gun so he could defend himself, and his name was Luke Martin. And Luke Martin was ready to go to war with these black demons that had betrayed Minister Malcolm, the ones that he knew would betray Minister Malcolm. He was ready to go to war with them, right? And he explained to Minister Malcolm what was going on, right? And Minister Malcolm was being crossed on every hand. He was being crossed. He was literally being crossed. And what I want you to understand is that in our brother Ital Ayman, if you get a chance, get his book. I'm going to put his name in here. Let me put it in here before I forget. If you get a chance, brothers and sisters, I want you to look up our brother. I pray that he's on here tonight, because that's some paperwork that we have to pass between one another and have to get some understanding. And he's pointed out some things that, I mean, his research is just phenomenal. This brother Ital Ayman, and I pray that the brother come on and help me with this if he's watching. And I'm gonna try to get in contact with him so that he can come on. But he has the books on this, and it's very good for you to get. I mean, it's very good for you to get. And I care more so about your knowledge you getting it. I care about the knowledge of you getting it. I know some brothers are probably saying right now, well, what about your books? If you sell his book, we can't buy yours. I'm not concerned about that. I want you to have the truth. I pray that God will send some people in that will buy books from both of us. But if that's not the case, I certainly want you to have the information, brothers and sisters. This is a revolution. You have to be prepared. You have to be prepared. Now, second best example of this is the December 11, 1960 assassination of John F. Kennedy. And like I said before, we're going to talk about Minister Malcolm. We're going to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. We're going to talk about the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Talk about Dr. Khalid Muhammad. We're going to talk about Sister Ava Muhammad. See, this is what I'm telling you. All this stuff is tied together. But it's the duty of the black Boule to kill the black people that are threatening, right, all the house Negroes, all their money, even the field people who got in the house, who the field Negroes who sold out to get in the house, and the shaking hand with the house Negro, the very ones that you put up and you thought you put them there, but the man put them there. And see, they shaking hands against you to make sure that their money is not stopped, their clout is not stopped, their comfortability is not stopped. This is the red stained carpet. You got to understand that. How many people in Hollywood have succeeded, and when they succeeded, you find out that a family member has gotten killed? Look at Michael Jordan, prime example. Look at him, one of the wealthiest black billionaires in America. I mean, one of the leading, if not the most wealthy black billionaire, right? I think LeBron James may have more money than him, but not very many. Not very many. You also, but if you look, Michael Jordan's father ended up mysteriously dead. Look at Bill Cosby. His son ended up mysteriously dead. Look at Jennifer Hudson. What happens? Her brother ends up mysteriously dead. You got to pay attention to this, brothers and sisters. It's not happening by chance. It's not happening by chance. You just you gotta pay attention to it. You gotta pay attention to it. Look at this. The scientist said that Illinois just passed a purge type law that goes into effect on the 1st of 2023. Purge law, and that's correct. They just passed it. And there's something else that you wanna look at. What I'm trying to get you to understand is that, and you have to understand it, there's no way around it, is that this blood-stained carpet, you got brothers and sisters that are playing a part in this against you to keep the money for themselves, right? To keep a position for themselves. And all of those at the top that are not serious will sell you out. I've seen one brother that was on Fox News, and I know anybody that's on Fox News don't mean nobody any good, right? Well, I'm sure you could agree. He was up there talking like he was there for black people. What's his brother's name? Just on Fox News. Just on Fox News. I was watching him on Fox News. But and I'm going to think of his name in a minute. Certainly going to think of his name. But this brother that was on Fox News recently had a black co-host on Fox News, a coon, that was defending America, literally defending America, and they were playing a game. The good black and the bad black. They're playing all of it's a game. Because again, America's never gonna put anybody in front of you that they can't fine tune. And you'll know if the person has went along with it, because if they went along with it, they've been around some 50, 60 years as a leader, hasn't made any real differences, hasn't caused any real trouble. That's how you know. That's how you know, brothers and sisters. And anytime I say this, that people ready on the attack. They'll call out the name of people because they're on the attack. And the only thing I've ever said is that America is not going to put any leader in front of you that he can't control. The government has to be able to control these leaders. Uncle Sam has to be able to control the black and white leaders that they put in front of you. And the ones that can't control, you'll know it because they've ended up dead. Now look, the black leadership that is tied into the system, tied into the web, as Dr. Khalid called it, will be responsible for killing the black people, black nationalists, black wealthy people, or otherwise, that's not going along with the program. Right? Right. I want you to understand that Donald Trump, nothing's going to happen to him. But Donald Trump is a part of the program. He's pushed the system of racism. They love that. They love that. These whites love that. They're not going to kill him because he pushes the system of racism. Everything he pushes is good for America. It's good for the market in America as a slave-holding capital, as an oppressive capital, as one of the main spark plugs in the engine of racism, in the engine of global oppression, right? The engine of global oppression that runs the slave market of the global structure. So the oppressed global structure of the slave market is this world, but the engine of it, the engine, is the slave market. And the spark plug to start these engines are the countries that are invested in racism. That's why no matter where you go, you see the lighter people or the white people in charge and the darker people under these people. You see the ruling class is white and the oppressed class is black, brown, or yellow. They're other than white. And you have to understand that. So it's a very good lesson. Now, we're talking about the system. And when these monarchs, these leaders, because the president is nothing but an elected monarch. You have to understand that. He is a chairman, executive officer, right, with a tenure. So normally when they run, they'll get 8 years, right? Normally get 8 years. And then they get 2 years as assistant executives of the rest of them, the other presidents that come in office. You have to understand that. You have to understand that. But the whole purpose, whether they're Democrat or Republican, whether they're House of Lords or House of Commons, whether they're nationalists, right, or socialists, is to keep the American system of racism and oppression, discrimination going on, right? You have to understand that. If you understand that, we're on the same sheet of music. And I know you understand it because you're seeing it every day. You're seeing it every day. Every day. So when you look at John F. Kennedy, right, December the 11th, 1960, while vacationing in Palm Beach, Florida. This is when John F. Kennedy was president-elect, right? John F. Kennedy was threatened by Paul Pavlik. Who was Paul Pavlik? Paul Pavlik was a 73-year-old former postal worker driven by the hatred of Catholics. Who made Paul Pavlik hate Catholics? The requirements of the president is white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And let me put that down. The presidential, because I want to put it down for you, requirements, and these things that you need to know are to be, excuse my slow typing, brothers and sisters, white, comma, Anglo, comma, Saxon, comma, Protestant. And it has to be all of those. It has to be all of those. You have to be white, you have to be Anglo, you have to be Saxon, and you have to be Protestant, right? The term is called, we'll put it down there, termed WASP. Have to be WASP. I put some, should probably put some periods in between those so that you'll see that each of them represent words. So you're properly educated on this, and this is important. So here John F. Kennedy is. He's an Irish has direct descendant of the African Leprechaun, what's called an African Leprechaun. They call them leprechauns, but it's called the Leprechaun, right? These are the Africans where the Irish come from. Dark men that are short, stocky, with red hair, ruddy hair. And during this high production, we're not going to go into Yakub, but the high production of the albino from this particular race, they produced a high production of albinos. These were literally brown, reddish men. They were brown and reddish men with freckles. And they produced the Irish, the present day Irish. The albinos, which were the father of the Irish, came from these individuals. And so this is why the Irish were called black, right? Pugs, right? Isn't that right? They had a black pug dedicated, it's in Ireland, named after King Charles, right? So they were sort of throwing hints about the Irish. Now, because America was that invested in racism, they didn't want anyone that was passing for black to get in that office. That's the first thing. Now, they could deal with the topographical or the cosmetic that John F. Kennedy looked white. They could deal with that, with Irish features. And if you look at these leprechauns, am I saying it right? Leprechauns, right? What the white man called leprechaun, you could see the features And they looked, black people that had Irish faces. And you know that the white man come from us. The albinos were produced, right? And when the albinos began to produce these alpinists, right? The albinos produced alpinists. Then these alpinists, thus the Alps, those that could only survive in mountainous regions because of the weight and heat of the sun, when they began to produce them, then there was a class struggle. It's always happened in history, right? Or a retake or invasion of those that were genetically inferior. They ganged up and began to kill the leprechaun, right? The blacks, the original leprechaun was black, called leprechauns. They began to kill them out, attack them through mob faction. And this happened all over the globe. And if you look today, white people still attack black people in mob fashion because they have a heavy fear of them as dominant people, right? From the ability that they had. And they always talk about the leprechauns, as the African leprechauns, as manipulative. They always talk about them as manipulative. And that's why they call the leprechaun tricky. All of this is talking about you. So they gave, when you look and see, one of the biggest hints is for them to have the month of March, right? The Irish month of March, right? And how they pinch. They will pinch. And what was really happening is, if you don't wear, they said if you're wearing green, if you're not wearing green, they'll pinch you. What was really happening is they made the leprechaun wear green, right? To for one thing, they needed them to turn over the kingdom they had established, right? And they subdued them by wearing green, right? That's how they subdued them. And this would include that they will allow them that the leprechaun will allow them to overtake them, breed with them, and many of them they physically ate, in order that they would assume power of the Irish kingdom. And the same thing was happening in Europe. They were taking the black monarchs, taking all the black monarchs, and they were replacing them with the albino monarchs, right? Like Queen Elizabeth I. Queen Elizabeth II was also passing for white. And all you got to do is research the history. But she worked harder than anyone to keep black out of the kingdom, out of the monarch. Isn't that right? If you look at J. Edgar Hoover, what did he do in America? He was black. If you look at the movie, he was a black man, but he worked harder against, he was passing for white. He worked harder against black people than anybody else. But you also had those that were black, that identified with black, that were passing for black, that identified with black. Look at Carol Channing, the actress, Carol Channing. It was all around. Marilyn Monroe. All you got to do is pay attention to it. Clark Gable. All of these were passing, and they fought. What did Clark Gable do? Clark Gable fought so that Hattie McDaniels, the lady that played the maid, could receive a Tony Award. What did Marilyn Monroe do? She fought for Lady Day. Right? She fought for Billie Holiday, called Lady Day. Right? What did John F. Kennedy do? His great sin is that he created a speech that said we have to give black people actual freedom so we're not made to look like hypocrites on a global scale. These are taboos. This is no-nos. Those things can't even happen today. How much hell did Barack Obama catch? They let him come as president cosmetically. He was under the constant threat of death. What is happening to Kamala Harris? The same thing. It's the same system, brothers and sisters. You have to understand that. So that this thing that was happening with John F. Kennedy, he had threats before, right? We may still experience the death of Barack Obama. We don't know. He's more dangerous now than he's ever been. The fact that he's been a president, the fact that he had a plan makes him dangerous, right? It still makes him dangerous, even if he goes along the program. And nobody went along the program like Obama did. He's the one black leader that went along with the white man's program, right? And he thought if he went along with the program, that he'll get his program approved. It never happened. They're never going to approve anything that a black leader is going to do for black people. They won't do it. And so he was fooled, into thinking that if he passed certain things for others, so they could funnel money. That's why I tell you the black man has no friends. The yellow man is not your friend. The red man, I should say so-called yellow man. So-called yellow man is not your friend. The so-called red man is not your friend. The so-called brown man is not your friend. When the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was talking about the black, the red, the brown, he was talking about the man that's so black that he had a yellow tinge. The man that was so black that he had a brown tinge. The man that was so black that he had a red tinge. There are some that are so black that they have a blue tinge. There's some that are so black that they have a yellow tinge. So, brothers and sisters, he's talking about these people. He wasn't talking about, and the Most Honorable Master Fard Muhammad was talking about that too. They wasn't talking about the red man that you see today. The red man that you see today is not a real red man. You look at them today and they look white. They're going through this color change again. This splicing. They're still going through the splicing. They're trying to splice black people right now again. Pretty soon you'll be looking at black people and they'll be looking white. And they're trying to kill out the darker, keep the lighter. Kill the darker of the lighter and keep the white. And that's what they're doing. Pretty soon you have black people who look like white people, right? And close to white people that the America would be claiming are the original African American. But you have to understand, because see, there's no such thing as African American. Right? Unless they kill out the African. then you will have a thing such as African American. And those people, right, who are saving the white color line will eventually get freedom. We have to be honest, brothers and sisters. We live in a racist country. And if you're black, you have to continue to talk about racism and what it actually is. You're going to have to do it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and thumbs up, brothers and sisters. We certainly can use it, and we welcome you to make comments in the sections, however good or however bad. But this is the thing that we want you to know. Because this is a system of oppression. We have to put out the education. Now, that was the first time that John F. Kennedy was threatened. And we're going to talk about this, and we're going to go back up to Lincoln because it's very important. We need to thoroughly understand Lincoln. I want you to thoroughly understand it. John F. Kennedy, again, was not from the South. The man that intended to kill him was from the South, but it was not a regulated, not a regulated Southern state. Because if you Florida, when you look at Florida, and you have to understand this, Florida, which is a place that I believe Pavlik come from, if I make no mistake, it's Palm Beach, Florida. This Florida that Pavlik come from, I want you to understand that it is a regulated Jewish state, not a regulated Southern state. It's a regulated Jewish state. You have to think about that. Now, you have to also ask yourself the question: what does the Jews have against the Catholics? The Jews have against the Catholic is that the Catholic is a powerful religious monarch. Remember, we talked about the monarchs. Why was Mary, the Queen of England and Scotland, killed? France, England, and Scotland. Mary, right? Queen Mary. Why was she killed? Mary of Scotland. She was killed because she was black, right? Queen of Scotland. Mary, the Queen of England, Queen of France, who married Dauphin. She was killed and betrayed because she was black. And they were trying to erase the color line. She was killed and betrayed also because she was a dedicated Catholic. They were trying to kill the color line. Their desire was to kill the color line. You got to understand that. If you don't understand anything else, you have to understand that, brothers and sisters. See, because when you have that kind of understanding, then you'll be able to focus on what's happening to you on a local level. When you have when you understand the grand scheme of things, same thing is happening on a local level. John F. Kennedy, with his background, right, was not welcome, brothers and sisters, in this society of American monarchs, because they were themselves also attached to Ireland and England, right? The father, Joseph Kennedy, had worked on the Board of the United Nations, and he was an ambassador to England. You have to understand that, right? They called him an appeaser. This is another thing, right? So they didn't. There were certain things about him that they didn't necessarily accept, and it wasn't so much that he was an appeaser, but he was from a monarch line, and they didn't want the monarchs coming here to run America. And through John F. Kennedy, that line would have been remade. It's another thing, and the monarchs themselves, right, were at the mercy of Kennedy, who had a background and backline to literally do the right thing to stand up for people because he had a conscience. Not only that, his political conscience was matched also with his brother's, I might as well say internal conscience, right? But not necessarily for social equality, but more so that they wouldn't be looked at as global hypocrites or national hypocrites playing a part in the global on the global scene. So that's important. Now, Pavlik intended to use dynamite when destroying President Kennedy. He initially wanted to use dynamite, and he placed it in a 1950 Buick, right? Kennedy's vehicle. How does he get that close to Kennedy? Now, he changed his mind after he saw Kennedy's wife and daughter with him, right? When they bidded him goodbye, he changed his mind. But the question is, how does he get that close? Can a man get that close to somebody that important, somebody that wealthy, unless they have some assistance? This is what I'm trying to get you to see. Kennedy was a threat to the fabric of the nation because of his ideals and goals. His youth, right, made him see things in a different way. Excuse me, brothers and sisters. He had not been, most of the American presidents fought their way into these positions of power in the beginning. And you'll find that because of this system of democracy, the wealthy or the independent wealthy or the socially wealthy, because that is a position that exists, because if you're socially wealthy, people will give you money, make you wealthy. They had fought to make themselves significant, right, relevant in the present society. And you have to understand that this is all about leadership. All about leadership. They fought to make themselves relevant. And when you fight, brothers and sisters, to make yourself relevant in a society, that means that you have grouped amongst yourself power. The investors will invest in you. The investors from the lowest level will invest in you to make sure that their fabric is not destroyed. If they can get you and you get there, you got a job to do. They don't care what job you do, as long as that job doesn't interfere with your position. Because your position at that point is to represent the interests of the wealthy on a local and global scale. You have to understand that. And that's why I said we have to take our time in this. Now, and I want you to understand that Pavlik has changed his mind. He had a conscience, right, as far as family was concerned. And really, we really don't know what made him change his mind, but we do know that he didn't do it. And we also know that when Pavlik, and this is Richard Paul Pavlik, and all you got to do is search this. This is December the 11th, 1960 in Palm Beach, Florida. President Kennedy, Palm Beach, Florida's resident. Now, as a result of that, right, Pavlik, he doesn't go through with it. He was arrested before he could stage another attempt. That's what they say. Now, don't you know that if you got a clear hit on somebody and you don't take it, understand this, no assassin is going to give somebody else a second chance. He is a murderer. That's what he does for a living. Assassins That's what they do. Even if they're not paid for it, this takes a special kind of person, however evil, however be it evil, it takes a special kind of person to commit an assassination, right? A completely narcissistic and a sociopathic mindset in order to do this. Now, I want you to understand something. The charges, now understand this. Here he tried to kill Senator John F. Kennedy, who was also a war veteran, right? Dedicated. Here John F. Kennedy, just tell you a little bit about his life when he was in the war, in the Navy. Very popular Navy lieutenant. Robert Kennedy was in there too, but he was an enlisted. John F. Kennedy was a naval officer in the Navy. Well, John F. Kennedy, as a naval officer, PT boat had been hit. World War II. He and his was using his PT boat to save the lives of individuals. He even swam to save 10 lives of other individuals, and it left him with a back injury that he had to the day he died. When you see John F. Kennedy sitting in seats, he's slumped over. It's a good posture, but he's often leaned over to get the support of the arm of the chair. He hardly ever bends over. He sits up straight, and it's possible that he wore a back brace for the entire time that he was after this injury. Now, understand this. Here this man tried to kill an American senator, which is just unforgivable. But one thing you know about true assassins, the charges are usually dropped against them. A patsy, they won't drop the charges against a patsy, but they'll drop the charges against murderers, people, assassins that American hire, both private and public, are hired to take out individuals that are a threat to democracy. John F. Kennedy, as a senator, passed popular laws that made him a threat to democracy. In his campaign against President Nixon, what made him win was this idea of civil rights and true equality. He was all right if he stayed a politician. He wasn't going to try to make good on it. But he moved to make good on it, right, so that he could win the second election. He moved to make good on it. He was speaking these things as a senator, young senator, one of the youngest senators to ever come through. Barack Obama came in second, I believe, and President Clinton came in third as the youngest presidents to ever serve throughout history. Now, the charges against Pavlik were dropped on December the 2nd, 1963. Look at this. When is John F. Kennedy killed? He's assassinated November the 23rd, 1963. The charges against Pavlik would be kept on him as long as President Kennedy was alive. They would have to have punished him, right, within the time that Kennedy was in office. Kennedy wins the election, right? The attempt happened in 1960, right? December of 1960. President Kennedy wins office, right? He wins the office of president. 1959, the campaign, Kennedy and Nixon, 1959, right, for president of the United States. He wins 1960, right? The attempt is put on his life in December 1960, right? He's serving office. Kennedy serves from 1960 to 1963, November 23rd, 1963. After Kennedy is killed, right, the charges against Pavlik is dropped in December the 2nd, 1963, 10 days after the assassination in Dallas, Texas, where President Johnson, the vice president, lived, who did not like Kennedy. He did not like Kennedy. He absolutely hated Robert Kennedy, Senator Robert Kennedy, right? Judge Emmett Clay Schultz ruled that Pavlik was mentally ill and unable to distinguish between right and wrong in his actions. I want you to pay attention to this. And ordered that he remain in psychiatric hospital. The federal government also dropped the charges in August of 1964. I want you to understand this. I want you to understand exactly what's happening. This is the red carpet. What? To keep everything intact. And Pavlik was eventually released from the New Hampshire State Hospital. This is a mental health facility in New Hampshire. He was released from the New Hampshire State Hospital on December the 13th, 1966. And Pavlik died at age 88, November the 11th, right? 1975 at the Veterans Administration Hospital in Manchester, New Hampshire. So I believe, yes, Manchester, New Hampshire. So brothers and sisters, you have to understand. You have to understand what's going on. This is the first assassination attempt, right? Before Kennedy is killed, this is the first assassination attempt. Now, that happened in 1960, December 1960. Now, we know that in November the 23rd, 1968, right, that assassination attempt was the successful one. They started talking about this, mystery bullet, right? All of this goes inside. It's a government operation. Every assassination is in a government operation. I don't care if it's England. I don't care if it's America. I don't care if it's China. I don't care if it's Russia. It's a government assassination. Now, depending on this war in Ukraine, we'll see how that goes. But depending on it, you might see a dead Vladimir Putin. You might see it. But they're going to have to be able to get close to him. The only way that they'll be able to assassinate Vladimir Putin, and this is something that you certainly need to be looking toward. The only successful assassination of Vladimir Putin is that they buy some of his support on the inside, somebody that's close to him. And right now, they haven't been able to find anyone that are able to pull it off at this moment. So I want you to understand exactly what's going on. They don't want in America, and they create these zealots. They don't want anyone in America that is going to disrupt the machinery of America. They don't want it. They don't want anyone in America that can interrupt this machinery. Pavlik, who pulled back from killing Kennedy, had gained some kind of conscience. When he pulled back from killing Kennedy, this is, again, I say the first assassination attempt, government bagged. Had to be bagged by the government. No way that you can get that close to the president of the United States. Brothers and sisters, wake up. Wake up. See, because if you accept the lie of against the assassination of President Kennedy, right? If you accept that lie, when they got film to let you know everything that's going on, the Zapruder film. But if you accept the lie of Lee Harvey Oswald, then you're being naive to what kind of country you live in. Remember, this is a country that built itself off of slavery by stealing African people from Africa, colonializing them in Africa. In other words, harvesting them like crop, producing with them, catching them like animals, and putting them on the ship to sell them to a land that they knew not, right? They had not been there before. There are other Africans that had been there. They had ancestors there, but they had not made the trek to greet their ancestors so that they would know the land, right? Because you had African, the African Native American, right? The Anam, right? Right? The Anam was there. The African Native American, the Anam, was there. Right? The Adam of America. Right? The Aboriginal man of America was there. And the Aboriginal man of Africa would meet with them, right? They would come together under these understanding spiritual treaties to be able to establish themselves in this land and also migrate to South America, which is the third Africa. And the purpose of that was to create their own diaspora or diaspora. That was the whole purpose. But through slavery, right? And they showed the white man the country in America. The white man learned from you, the African, your ancestors, what America was to us and what we were doing there. It wasn't the fact that we had never been here. It's the fact that they had taken over Africa, taken over the transport of brothers and sisters, right? And harvested us like animals. And when they got over, they distorted the entire process of the diaspora. He didn't come up with it. He got it from you, stole it from you, and took it and used it for his own purpose. Same way that he did your religious system, he used it as a source of power. He overtook it because you were still being peaceful with a man that was killing you, taking you out. But not to get off the subject. So, Pavlov, he gets a conscience. He gets a conscience. Now, when he didn't do it, they arrested him. Right? They said they arrested him before he was able to stage another assassination attempt. We understand that. We know how that goes. We know how that goes. They arrested him. And when they arrested him, right? And this is in the history. It's in the history books. When they arrested him, then they, put him in prison for a while. Then they said the judge, he stood in front of the judge, and the judge said they were insane. Now, nothing has changed in America because they continue to do the very same thing. So nothing has changed, brothers and sisters. Nothing has changed in America. They do the very same thing. What happens when a white assassin kills us? Shoot black people. What do they say? What do they say when they shoot black people? When they shoot these mass killings? We've gotten up to now 500 mass killings, and we're not even out of this year. Mass killing of black people. So many that they can't even show them all on the camera. If you got breaking news, every time you turn around, black people are being killed by police or by white nationalists. If you have the app, they're being taken out. Literally being taken out. So the question is, brothers and sisters, what do we do? Right? What do we do? When in a system of America, the American system, funds or take the side of the assassin, take the side of the one that is killing us, right? And it is overt now. This system wants to move toward a totalitarian government, a dictatorship that will sanction these kind of actions. Can you imagine what would happen if Donald Trump get in office again? Can you imagine? We're already in a race war. Now you got black people jumping over counters, hitting white people in the head and killing them. This happened. A Wendy's worker did this. Jumped over the counter. White man said that he didn't appreciate the food. Right? Black man jumped over the counter, hit him, and killed him. Literally killed him. Excuse me, brothers and sisters. There's a fly flying around me. Promise you that I took a bath. But I wanted to say that this government sanctions racism. And all you got to do is see it. You got to see it. Now, let's go back to President Lincoln, because this was wasn't the first assassination, it was the first significant assassination. First significant assassination. When you go to President Lincoln, you look at John Wilkes Booth, who committed this heinous crime, right? Lincoln himself was part black. He had a black father who ran away with his white mother from a plantation. And they tell you this very plainly. The same thing happened with Benjamin Banneker. He was black and white. His mother ran away with one of the slaves and produced him, right? So there's always been a fabric in this racism thing, the hypocrisy. But John Wilkes Booth was from the North. He was from the North. And he was a sympathizer with the Confederate ideals, right? Which is ideal bit on racism, an ideal bit on segregation, an ideal bit on discrimination. He was satisfied with these ideals, right? He was a supporter of Jefferson Davis, right? Who was the Confederate president, right? For the South, because they considered you had the South, the slave owners cut it in half, and it became half slave and half free. So they wanted to create a system where you would have had two Americas. That's what they wanted. They wanted two Americas. And the Southern America will have a president, Northern America will have a president. So you end up with two countries. This is why Abraham Lincoln said, I'll save the Union, right? I'll save it. If it's half slave, half free, I'll save it. He said, if it's all slavery, I'll save it. He said, but it will be a union. We will unite it. And after that, you can pass laws to make it all slave and the North and South half slave or whatever you want to do. We'll do that. But what I want to get you to understand that you can't look at the South in the sense of the Mason-Dixon line, brothers and sisters. Anything below the Canadian border is considered South because everybody white in America supported slavery. I don't care how moderate they were. They supported slavery. And the only ones that fought against slavery were those that stood out outright to do it. People like John Brown and that matter of fact, that's the only one in history that ever fought other whites and killed white slave owners for supporting the system of slavery. He fought against racism in particular. It was the only slave abolitionist that you had ever in history. The only one. The only one. The only one. So don't forget to subscribe, like, and thumbs up, brothers and sisters. We certainly need it. And so this is very important for you to understand. Very, very important for you to understand. Now, the same danger that you had with President Lincoln, you had with John F. Kennedy. And all of it had to do with race. No matter how you look at it, no matter what the angle, all of it had to do with race. You have to accept that. Even if it was the political subject of race, all of it had to do with race. So we covered Pavlik, we covered John Wilkes Booth. Both had something in common. They loved the racist epitaph that was put on from the southern region of America. So what happens? John F. Kennedy was vacationing when this thing happened. When this man was going to kill him, he was vacationing. Pavlik was arrested by the Secret Service. He was arrested by the Secret Service, brothers and sisters. Here these guys come in. Police supposedly find dynamite in the car. How did this man get close to John F. Kennedy, the president of the United States? How does he even get close? How do people today get on the White House grounds? You had people in the military. Look at January the 6th. See, you don't have to go very far. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This thing, man, is too easy to see. You can't make this stuff up. Look at January the 6th. What happened? They overrun the state house, right? The national house, right? The Capitol, where the laws are made, right? They overran it. What happened to Kamala Harris during that time? Also at the White House, right? They overran it, almost got to her. You have to understand that. What happened to Mike Pence? Donald Trump, who's pushed the narrative for America, had all the support of the federal government, even in the legislature. The Senate, House of Representatives, House Judicial Committee, he was the executive officer. With the exception of the vice president, all of them agreed with him. They overran the Capitol. How do you get in that place, which is Washington, D.C., when in fact, brothers and sisters, you have guards and those that should be loyal to the office and the officers that are running the office of the nation, who were allowing these people to come in, had breached security, totally breached security. The United States National Guard that should have been there on watch wasn't there. As a matter of fact, they were late getting there and they pulled everything back. You had a successful, visible, open coup d'etat where they had planned to kill people. Now, these were white people that had overran the National Capitol building, the place where it all happens, where all the laws happen, came to kill all of those that were against Trump's Republican ideology, both Republican and Democrat. They came to kill him. Mike Pence, they told him to hang Mike Pence. Same thing is happening back here. Very same thing. No different. I want you to understand that. It's no different. The very same thing is happening. Very same thing is happening right here. It's no different. It's no different. The stuff that's going on is no different than what has happened in the past. What has happened shall be, what has been shall be again. Isn't that right? So I want you to understand what this blood-soaked carpet is. You can't look at just the entertainment field and the rap field and all that. It happens at the top level. It's the government of America that sanctioned these kind of actions to keep the machine of oppression going. The government sanctioned these kind of actions. And you and I have to know it, brothers and sisters, to learn exactly what's going on. So they arrested him in 1961, January 27, 1961. A year after, 1 year. No, excuse me. A month after the incident had taken place. 1 month. Now, Pavlik was committed to United States Service Mental Health Hospital in Missouri. He was indicted for threatening Kennedy's life 7 weeks later. The charges were dropped in 1963, which is very, very significant. The charges were dropped, brothers and sisters. The charges. What happened to John Wilkes Booth? They don't know. How do you get, as an actor, to the balcony of the president, where the security, this is the president of the United States, shoot him in the head and get away? How do you do it? That means they were all in on it. There's no way that he could have done that and got away. Totally impossible. Peace and blessings, sister. Salam alaikum. There's no way that he could have gotten away with it. No way he could have gotten away with it unless he had help. I'm trying to tell you, see, because that's the thing I'm trying to do. It's my job. My job to tell you how bloody the carpet is. How bloody the red carpet is. What it's stained with. Don't worry about it. We're going to talk about England and Africa too. We're going to talk about England and Africa too because it's important. And you should know it. It's important. No way that you should know it. Any assassination attempt, the government is in on it. You have to understand why the government is doing it, because it interrupts the natural flow of things. Racism is the flow of the American government. It's the flow of the everyone who support this American government. That's the regular flow. So now, when they got him, put him in mental health facility, automatically had deemed that he was mentally disabled. He didn't know what he was doing. Same thing they say about all these whites that are killing us. They didn't know what they was doing, and they leave them alive. Now, if you and I had did something like that, they would have killed us dead. As slaves, they would have killed us dead, physical slaves, in the physical slave system at that time. And today, in the invisible slave system that we are in, you let us do something like that, like they did on the Capitol, we'll be dead. You let us threaten the life of the vice president, we'll be dead. Anything that those people have done, we would have been laying all across the White House lawn. They would have killed all of us to send a message to those of us that wasn't there, and would have used it to penalize every black across the nation. I want you to understand that, because the system of racism is alive and well in America. You got to understand that. So that's what they did. They committed him, right? When they committed him, 7 weeks later, they dropped the charges against him. Now, they dropped the charges against him. What was it? He was indicted, He was indicted first. 7 weeks later, for threatening the life of the president. They didn't say assassination attempt. They said threatening the life of the president. The charges against Pavlik was dropped December the 2nd, 1963, and 10 days after John F. Kennedy's assassination in Dallas. In other words, they came up with another plan. After that, they said that Judge Emmett Coates ruled that Pavlik was unable to distinguish between right and wrong in his actions, right? And they kept him in a mental hospital, right? And that's just another phase of getting ready to wash him from that responsibility. He was going to do it, right? But while they were acting as if they were going to punish him for this act, they were also creating a climate okaying anyone else that wanted to take a shot at Kennedy. This popularity and this climate was being built. I want you to understand the psychology of the climate that was being built. When Malcolm X was killed, what happened? Climate was being built. By who? The American government. Using who? Muslims. Why? Because he was black. And these are high killings. So you can't have a white man to do a high killing of a black man. You'll have the blacks going crazy over this nation. They would have, because of the climate, because it was thick enough to cut with a knife, black people would have started killing everybody in sight had they let a white man kill Minister Malcolm. They created the climate. Dr. King was being killed. What happened? The climate. What about the climate? 3 years after Minister Malcolm, you still have the climate in there. Black people are ready. They're aggressive now, more aggressive than they were than when Malcolm was alive, right? Because it wasn't Minister Malcolm that was really igniting. Malcolm was speaking what was on their mind, but the system of civil rights was changing anyway. This whole dramatic display of marching had worn black people out. And they see black people constantly getting killed. Remember, they started marching when Emmett Till was killed, right? They started marching. Why? Because Emmett Till wasn't the first kill, but it was the first time black people decided to march, take to the streets for black people that were being killed. Because prior to that, they was laying them out in Atlanta, right? You can go all the way back from the 1950s of Emmett Till and go all the way back to 1919 in Elaine, Arkansas. What was happening? The government was shooting down black people. Why? Because the system of trade, system of slavery had been destroyed. The 13th Amendment, everybody they couldn't get into prison, they began to kill. They needed to keep that system going. They needed to keep the sharecropping system going. They needed blacks to work it. And when blacks rebelled, I'm not going to work for this system, then what did they do? They began to attack them. Who attacked them? The government. There were government men that attacked the brothers and sisters in Elaine, that attacked the brothers and sisters in Tulsa, Oklahoma. They were dropping bombs, right? Elaine, Arkansas, they were shooting. They were throwing grenades. In Tulsa, Oklahoma, they were dropping bombs. The government was dropping bombs. They were shooting people down, burning them up. Isn't that right? Anywhere that there was a black city, Rosedale, what happened? They began to hang men, attack them. Why? Because they stood up against the powers. They stood up to save their own people. Any black city you had, they bombed it and buried it. So many of them put it underwater, pushed the dirt over it, and built cities right over it. Same way in the Manhattan Harbor, which belonged to a black man. What did they do? They killed him. What did they do? Buried his family. Took the houses on the harbor built by the water, which was the worst land. The black man turned into a good land because he took care of the grass and tilled it. Right? The first horticulture. Right? The first lawn care jobs and all of that. The black man knew how to beautify his area. They dropped bombs on it, burned it down, and dug holes, buried those cities, and built over them. What happened to the city of Atlantis? The same thing. They saw black people in the city of Atlantis. What did they do? They destroyed that coastline, pushed the city over into the water. The water fell over it. What did they do to Florida? They built over it. Ponce de Leon came later and continued to build over it, and they've been doing it ever since. I just want to let you know what's going on. You have to know what's going on. There's no mistake, brothers and sisters. There's no mistake. And so when you see this, you know that there's a blood-filled carpet in America, right? We're going to get to England. We're going to get to Africa. I know it's taking some time, but I just got to put the right information down so that you'll know exactly what's going on. So when you tell the man that you already know what's going on, that he can't look at you like you're crazy. We got to be intelligent. It's time for us to stop now foolishness on shows and teach. We have to teach one another. Each one teach one, reach one, each one, right? And we got to teach one another. You can help me if I miss anything, and I can help you. We're teaching this together. You have to understand that. We're teaching it together. And we need to go out with everything we learn. Go out and tell other brothers and sisters about it and tell them to support the show. Tell them to buy the books. We create and write these books for a reason. You can get a physical book or you can get a PDF. Either way, get the same knowledge so you're able to teach it. You should be taking this knowledge, grouping it amongst yourselves and teaching it and listening to the shows so you can let brothers and sisters know exactly what's going on. But I want to talk about the most significant assassinations here in America. Then the rest of it, because I want to give you the knowledge on it, and then the rest of it will talk about it. But I'm only going to put so much down here because, like I said, I don't want to bore you with all the information. So this federal government also dropped the charges August the 4th, 1964. By this time, Lyndon Johnson is in office, right? Going strong, right? The Civil Rights Bill has been passed. Lyndon Johnson didn't do that. Martin Luther King and John F. Kennedy did that. But they couldn't. There's no way that Martin Luther King should be allowed to live. Certainly Malcolm X, who began to work in civil rights, right? And black nationalism and was on his way back into the nation with a massive amount of people. We certainly can't let him live. We definitely can't let him live. And so Malcolm and King's head gets on the chopping block. Robert F. Kennedy would probably be alive today if he hadn't run for president of the United States. He would probably be alive today. But with all the knowledge that he had against Lyndon Johnson, it would have been a successful win, for one thing. Certainly would have been a successful win, but he knew that President Johnson was involved in having his brother killed, and this is knowledge now, plain knowledge. You can find it anywhere. So I'm not saying anything that anybody doesn't know, right? It may be a little dangerous, but I'm still telling you because the knowledge is out there. When Robert F. Kennedy decided to run for president, you would have, in this investigation of the death of his brother, which he would have certainly done because he was aggressive. He was one of the best lawyers that they had. So he certainly would have done it. And they couldn't allow that either because they would have put an egg on America's face. As much egg as it would have put on America's face for Malcolm X to go to the United Nations and file charges against America for what? The same thing President Kennedy was working for, right? Reparations for black people. Same thing that Robert F. Kennedy was working for. He was putting the bug in John F. Kennedy's ear. Reparations for black people. It would change everything around, would have changed the dynamics. You would have had buying power, but it would have slaved and redrawn the system of democracy, I should say the system of hypocrisy that we were dealing with. And they can have that, right? The wealthy people can have it. And that's why they're the ones normally are funding this stuff, because if they do that, then it's a free enterprise, and then you can work for them and make them more money. You're still going to be on the bottom. You still be on the bottom. You know the way wealthy people, you know the way wealthy people hire the Mexicans to come over here, and they pay them direct, right? And the Mexicans don't become a threat until they begin to want rights. Well, see, you and I don't have any rights today. The amendments are not worth the paper that they're written on. They're not worth anything, but while the white man tricks us, he can give us little trinkets, right? Little trinkets, little levels of advancement. He does the Mexicans the same way. You don't really have any rights, but he'll use you as a political football to get what he wants. And the wealthy people, if they had given you reparations tomorrow, they would have taken your money, reinvested in the stock market, and used it for their purpose of wealth. Why, you would have made a little money, but you wouldn't have made the kind of money nor the status that the white man would have made. So you still would have been in the area of a wealthy slave, right? Because we already told you the way the system is built, because it's built on a color line. No black person, I don't care how much money you have, will ever reach the level that whites have. And that's why integration was so dangerous as a movement, because it was the people saying, the wealthy, the working class, the middle class, and the working middle class, the working class and the black working class, right? And all of these levels of classification would have been able to come together as a commonwealth market, and you would not have needed America. And what would have happened to America as a sovereign? It would have had to play its role to go right back to England, right? England would run it as a monarch. So because at the top level, as we talked about in other lessons prior, the monarch is still running America. America is still paying taxes and wealth to the monarchs. It is a part of the monarch. England is the mother country of America, right? And what child comes from a wealthy parent doesn't have to pay homage to their parent and doesn't owe their parent? There's no way. There's no way. Because they're indebted to the parents, and whatever they do, the investments are made in the area that the person is being established. When America is being established as a country, England is investing in America. The only difference is that America said, look, we're tired of paying this taxation. They owe them. We're tired of doing this. We don't want to do it anymore. So they began to fight the war. You have to understand that. So there's still the class struggle of the royals, the children of the world, that are fighting and trying to gain power as independent commonwealth owners. And if they could do that, they could establish imperialism. What was Donald Trump saying? He was wanting to establish imperialism in America. He wanted to establish it, right? So he could gain power as a monarch. This is what he was talking about. Not an English monarch, but an American monarch. And we're still waiting. We're still waiting. We don't know what's going to happen. We're still waiting, brothers and sisters. It's still early. We don't know what's going to happen. But you have to explain this so you could see what's at stake. Now, the Queen has died, right? So England itself is vulnerable because Charles doesn't have the wisdom that the Queen had, right? Charles doesn't have that wisdom. And he's different. He was raised in a different society. He's one of the first youth monarchs that exercised divorce, right? So that means that he himself was a new age monarch, making new age decisions. Because in the past, you couldn't have had a king or queen to have gotten a divorce. They would have to go through the priest, Catholic priest, or the Anglican priest, and all of that in order to get it. But it was the hardest thing to happen. Diana going on with her life, right? and loved by the world, a global structure she loved, went around in ridicule of poverty in Africa. She's holding children with AIDS. She's embracing the society. She's fighting against what? A system that justifies black people as inferior and justifies putting them in a tax debt on a global scale. She is a what? She's a threat to the crown. She is a threat to the crown. Brothers and sisters, do you see this? I hope that you can see it. And if you can see this, then you understand that you couldn't let a Diana live. You couldn't let a Princess Diana live because she was a threat to the English crown. She went against everything that it stood for. Her very spirit was against everything that the spirit of England was for. We could not let her live. She's going to live her life. She wanted to live her life without you, right? She wants to live her life. It doesn't happen. She's not able to do it. Why? Because it would have made the crown look bad. Why? It would have been an establishment of power. She herself was still in right a princess and still a lady of the crown. She had married in France, the French crown or the French head. What would have happened? She would have been established as an equivalent French royal. Who else went to France? If you remember, Grace Kelly married the Prince of Monaco in France. She becomes a power. She has to, in so many instances, get permission to come back to acting. Why? She was a threat to the French crown. You have to think about that. So it altered her life. The only difference in her and Princess Di is that she yielded. She yielded to Monaco and the Prince of Monaco. She yielded to the dynasty. Diana, in so many instances, was called to a greater mass leadership, but it would have been dangerous for the English crown. And certainly she had the protections of other nations because she became popular in that stead. So brothers and sisters, it's dangerous at the top. It's lonely at the top. And if you're not willing to go along with the game plan, pretty soon you can look, right, to pick out your plot, whatever mausoleum you're going to be buried in or whatever portion of earth you're going to be buried in, you might as well pay it and have your insurance paid up so at least your family can benefit. I'm just letting you know because this is what you're dealing with. You've been dealing with it the entire time, right? We talked about John F. Kennedy. There was we got who else? Who else do we have? We got Richard Nixon. Arthur Bremer had an assassination attack on Richard Nixon. We're not going to go into Richard Nixon, but I just want you to know that each of them had an assassination attack. Why? Because at some point they went against the government. They hit Nixon with this Watergate scandal. They hit Nixon with a Watergate scandal to destroy his name when he was involved in stopping the Vietnam War. This wouldn't have been good for America. Why? America would not have had an excuse to be in Vietnam. They would have to move their people from North Korea, right? And Korea is a stronghold. North Korea is a stronghold for us. See what I'm saying? So he was a danger. Another assassination attempt on Harry S. Truman in 1947, right? The state of Israel, the Zionist Stern Gag, was believed to have sent a number of letter bombs addressed to the president and high-ranking staff members at the White House. These things they don't talk about. Franklin Delano Roosevelt, assassination on him in February the 15th, 1933. Herbert Hoover, November the 19th, 1928. Assassination attempts. Gerald Ford, September the 5th, 1975. Jimmy Carter, from Raymond Lee Harvey, right? And you see all of these type of three names. These is the three names assassination, and which is another sign of the American involvement. You got, look, Lee Harvey Oswald, Sirhan, You gotta look at this. John Wilkes Booth. All these three names. Ronald Gene Barber, the one that was trying to retire military officer and freelance writer, plotted to kill Clinton while he was jogging. If you remember that, his name was Ronald Gene Barber. Francisco Martin Duran, right, also tried to kill President Clinton in. He tried to kill him in. What was that? November 1994. He tried to kill Clinton. So I just wanted to show you that. Now, the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy. We're going to talk about that after we talk about the assassination of Malcolm X and Minister Martin Luther King Jr. Now, the most significant assassination of any American leader, I don't care who it is, because you got to understand this. Marcus Garvey was not killed. You have to understand that. Noble Drew Ali was killed, and we're going to talk about that briefly. But he was killed in the sense of internationalism, because he was gaining the Moorish Temple Science of America was gaining Africans of Africa, Africans of the diaspora, and also in America. So we can't rule him out as being significant, because he was. He was significant in the area of the United Nations in having an international charter to reestablish freedom for the Moors. And you identified as a Moor, then the Moors did not come here as slaves, they came here as owners. And this is very important. You have to remember that. And the religion that they taught was a strong religion, and still very strong religion today, that talked about and generated for the diaspora a type of unity internationally, right, that would have rivaled many religious organizations, in the sense that it claimed them as owners and private citizens that weren't affected by American law. If you're not a slave and you have commonwealth in America, you can't be affected by common law. Now, the best, I hesitate to say curators, of this philosophy was Timothy Drew, better known as Noble Drew Ali, born January the 8th, 1886, during a full moon. It was a full moon during his birth. And he was assassinated, because you have to say that, July the 20th, if I make no mistake, 1929. I believe I'm correct in saying that. And if I'm not, then you correct me. Somebody out there certainly correct me if I'm not accurate in saying that. But I believe he was assassinated July the 20th, 1929, which is a very, very significant day. That day is very, very, very significant, because it's another day of a full moon when he passed, and all you have to do is look, and you have to understand that this is the birth and resurrection. You don't say death, the birth and resurrection of a people, a mentality, a knowledge, right? So, but he was assassinated, and so and I want you to understand that he was considered by every level, every sense of the word, was considered a prophet. He was considered a prophet. So the Noble Drew Ali was an African American who founded the Moorish, and we'd say African American, and I'd say that for the sake of debate, just like I say black. I say it against my will, but I say it to fit the purpose. He was an African. He was an African in America who founded the Mauricelm Temple of America. He's considered a prophet, not only by his followers, by many blacks in America. They consider him a prophet. I just want you to know that. And I think that he should get the respect that he deserves. He certainly should get the respect that he deserves. He in 1913, he founded the Canaanite Temple of Newark, New Jersey. Now, brothers and sisters, Newark, New Jersey I want you to understand this, that was the temple established, the Nation of Islam temple was established there. This is ironic, just a fun fact. The Nation of Islam temple was established there. And Jeremiah 36X ran that temple. He was assassinated in Newark, New Jersey. After Minister Malcolm had been assassinated, he was assassinated. And that's another subject to be talked about. But we do know that the men that organized the assassination of Minister Malcolm X came from the Nation of Islam temple that was established in Newark, New Jersey. And that Farrakhan was in attendance when the organization of that was going on. Also, Farrakhan's brother lived down the street from Minister Malcolm, and the house was firebombed just weeks before Minister Malcolm was killed. The men that helped organize the assassination attempt and went through or acted out the dry run on Minister Malcolm in the Audubon Ballroom were also attached with Minister Louis Farrakhan's brother included to the those that were involved in firebombing the house, which is an imprint of the federal government, right? Burning of the house, burning of crosses, the Ku Klux Klan, all of that. They were involved in that whole action. So I just wanted to point that out to you and show you how ironic that is. But brothers and sisters, it's so much. You have to understand that there are always, in whatever assassination attempt, the white man is behind it. And even if you have black hands and black face, there are white hands and white minds that are puppeteering these black hands and black face to bring about these things that are going on. So brothers and sisters, this is important for us to know. It's very, very important for us to know, and it's something that we certainly don't want to forget. We cannot rule out the noble Drew Ali, and we can't rule out his assassination. And he was very pivotal in black people being independent and establishing this separation philosophy from this slave society that we're in. Noble Drew Ali was born in North Carolina, if I make no mistake. And again, if I'm wrong, brothers and sisters, somebody please let me know. But according to research, that's the way he was born. And also, brothers and sisters, because there are those that are involved in the Mauricelm Templar of America that have the knowledge, and I respect that. Certainly respect that. Before relocating to Chicago, also another fun fact is that he gained a following of 1,000 converts. 1,000, and that's very. You have to look at the date where this stuff is happening. The mindset of the people. He knew, out of his convictions, he spoke the desire of the mindset of the people of that day. So these are things that should be known. We don't talk about it much, but we should be talking about it, because what you have to understand is, and what I want to get you to see is that there's no division, brothers and sisters, no division at all in what our focus is. And as a result of us standing and following these focuses, right, and these leaders that are rising up, talking about independence, they're going to kill them. They have been killing them the entire time. Now, he's the first significant black leader that we have killed who's talking about nationalism. It's international. Nonetheless, it's among black people. So it is nationalism. And you can't rule it out. You can't rule it out. He's very, very important. I want you to also understand that it is through research, common knowledge. If you research, and it's common knowledge that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad were familiar. If you look at his fez and you look at the hat that he has, was familiar with this kind of religious study and did visit it, was a part of it, did visit it. Now, Sister Clara began to tell and explain to him about the teaching of Master Fard Muhammad there in Detroit at that time, visiting. And I hope that I'm correct about this. It was 19, this is a Muslim study, so we have to be right and exact. I know I'm right about the place, but I'm thinking about the date. I would say between 1931 and 1935. But Master Fard Muhammad had been teaching this since 1930. Okay, and so it's very important that we be right and exact, because what I'm trying to get you to see, brothers and sisters, is that when they kill Noble Drew Ali, is July 20th, 1929. Master Fard Muhammad comes on the scene teaching about the Nation of Islam. It's 1930 when he comes on the scene. And I want you to attach these things, because you can't stop the rise of the Black Messiah, because they're constantly rising. However, right, you can get black folks to detain the coming of a system where black people will be in rule, if they're being paid, if they're being subsidized and financed, right, by that system. You have a lot of black people that are financed by the system of Americanism, which is nothing but slavery and oppression, nothing but racism, slavery, and oppression. You have enough people that are funded. They're literally funded by this system, and the system will incorporate or fund anybody that's going to keep it going. And I hope you can appreciate what I'm saying. Warid Muhammad was for the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was I hate to say, the first destruction of a united Nation of Islam. United Nation of Islam. Today, you have three factions that come out of the United Nation of Islam. You have the International Muslim Sunni Islam in America. You have, which are the pleading fast. You have the Nation of Islam as taught by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that teaches the direct teachings, right? The Most Honorable Silas Muhammad teaches that faction. And then, which is the original. Then you have the Nation of Islam as it relates to Minister Louis Farrakhan, which has become Farrakhan. Farrakhan, they call themselves Farrakhan Muslim now. Farrakhan's given his last name Muhammad now, and the Farrakhan Muhammad Mosque. Okay, so do what you want to with that. Do what you want to with that, but they've incorporated Scientology and all of that. But to say the least, brothers and sisters, in its inception, Wallace Dodd Fard, also known as Wallace Fard Muhammad, Master Fard Muhammad, right? Who was born somewhere around February, as far as we know. This is reportedly, they don't have his birth date. Reportedly, February 26, 1987. Disappeared around 1934. He was a founder of the Nation of Islam, right? Master Fard Muhammad, the founder. He arrived in Detroit in 1930, if I make no mistake. And I believe I'm right and exact on that. He comes in Detroit in 1930. His background is unknown. They'll tell you that. They got all of this stuff, talking about aliases and all of that. His background is unknown. They don't know anything, so they're making it up. They're making it up. And he taught the Nation of Islam to members that was interested. It's in 1935, right? Or 1933, excuse me. That, because he began to teach it in 1930. But it's in, excuse me, brothers and sisters, it's in 1933 that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is able to hear this. He is welcomed there by his wife, Sister Clara. See, Sister Clara is the key to this whole thing Well, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad hears this message. She invites the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to this meeting. And once she invited him to the meeting, then things began to take off. She invited him to this meeting. So this is very, very important. But we can't talk about Nation of Islam only as it relates to Master Fard Muhammad until we understand the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And it's in the 1930s when Muhammad established the Nation of Islam. We have to understand that when he received this knowledge and to be the messenger, right, of the Nation of Islam, receiving the knowledge from the Master Fard Muhammad and promoting black pride and economic empowerment and separation. And see, that's a threat to the American government, because if you don't have somebody, brothers and sisters, that is working in this white man's system, he won't make it. He can't uphold or keep a system that he can't afford, right? So the labor and all that stuff will become competitive. You have to understand that. The labor will become competitive. And if the labor becomes competitive, then brothers and sisters, you begin to grab a form of wealth. But what does the white man do? He fights for competitive labor, right, in the labor market as an owner of the market. As an owner of the market. So you have to understand that. And with this teaching, right, it was in 1931 is what it was. 1931. Thank you, brothers and sisters. 1931 is coming to me now. 1931, August of 1931 is when it was that Sister Clara urges the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to attend, whose name is Elijah Poole at that time, to attend a speech on Islam and black empowerment by Wallace Fard Muhammad or W.F. Muhammad or Master Fard Muhammad. And once he does, then at that point, he approached Master Fard Muhammad. He asked if he was the Mahdi. The Mahdi means the Redeemer. Fard Muhammad responded that he was. But he lets it know that his time hasn't come yet. He taught black that they were the original Asiatic people. This and the rich history and cultural history that was stolen from us, everything that was taken from us, even our own lives and how we were brought to this land, right, and forced into slavery, right? And he taught that we should have to come out from among them to receive self-independence and cultivation of our own culture and our own civilization. This would have bridged the African in this country to do something for himself like it did, right? And it would have made an impression on the African of Africa who's still under colonialism. And it was happening, brothers and sisters. And this became a great threat. Great threat. So in order to destroy the Nation of Islam with all this history, and I'm moving sort of fast because the time is winding up on us. There was another death, significant death that they had to do, and it was the death of Minister Malcolm X. Why? Because Noble Drew Ali, they had already taken out his lead as well, right? They used black people to do it, brothers and sisters. Used black people to destroy his name. Then comes Master Fard Muhammad to give the teaching to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. His life is under threat. He himself disappeared. They're threatening his life. Did Jesus do that once? They were going to push Jesus over a cliff, and Jesus disappeared through the crowd. He got out of there, right? Because he knew the hearts of those people. This teaching is given to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who is the child with the word. Isn't that right? Right? He becomes the child with the word, becomes the magi, right, of that teaching and that knowledge, right? And so he creates what? Mas Miriam. Mas Miriam symbolically is called Mas Miriam because it's Mary. And this understanding that Mary is to give birth to a child, brothers and sisters. Isn't that right? And the birth is given to a child. And that child that comes, that is born, reborn to its inception, is Minister Malcolm X. You have to understand that. So we have another significant assassination, right? The assassination, right, of Minister Malcolm X. Now we have to talk about the Nation of Islam after this, why it was so powerful, right? But all of these was amazing assassination. We had the assassination of Minister Malcolm. We're going to talk about the assassination of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad too. I'm going to cover these things very fast. The assassination of Minister Malcolm X. So we want to make sure that we get these things in perspective, because it's very important and it's good for us to learn, so we can know exactly what's going on. It's important for us to understand it so we can know exactly what's going on. Brothers and sisters, before we end it, because we're going to get all this information down and then we're going to end it, so we may go over just a little bit, and I appreciate your patience. I want to tell you to be sure to push to donate to our Cash App. I put that information in there for you, and be sure to buy a book. We're trying to sell a book. Our only thing we're trying to raise this week, we have to have it today, so we'll have it tomorrow. We're trying to have $200. That's about it. $200 we're trying to raise this week to take care of a significant bill. $200 we're trying to raise. So I ask you to please, brothers and sisters, be generous to donate that. Buy a book from us, or donate to the Cash App, and I appreciate it very much. We thank for your help, and we appreciate all your participation. The assassination of Minister Malcolm X is something that is another significant assassination in that blood-soaked carpet. The assassination of Minister Malcolm, and there's no way for us to look away from that, because it's a very, very significant assassination, very significant, and we have to talk about the off branch. We're going to talk about that after we're putting the information in. But we have to understand these assassinations are very, very significant. These assassinations are significant because they played into the blood-soaked carpet. We don't have time to talk about Ernest 2X McGee, because that's very important too. It's something that we have to pay attention to, what threat that was to the government. And if you're a Muslim, then you understand exactly what I'm talking about. You understand everything that I'm talking about, because you know that it's very, very, very important. We know this is very important. We look at Minister Malcolm, what threat he played. The threat, and that's what we want to talk about. We want to talk about the threat that he played to the federal government, in the sense that you're talking about black nationalism, the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? He was a black Muslim, right? He was a black Muslim, black Muslim minister, should say, and human rights activist. He was not a civil rights activist. He was a human rights activist that was working in the civil rights movement. And I want to put accurate information down, because I want you to understand he was still a Muslim. Now, there are those that are trying to challenge that fact that he was Muslim. He was Muslim. He said that he was Muslim. He never changed it. He said that till the day he died, and he gave credence to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He was on his way back into the Muslim movement. I told you that this is something that they couldn't have. The last thing they want is black unity. What do messiahs do? The black messiah bring people together in black unity, right? Right? They bring people together. You have to understand that. You got to understand that. That anybody could call themselves a leader, but the proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding. He was a black Muslim minister, right, that was interested in black nationalism and bringing people together. And this is what he appreciated. He himself made a misstep as it relates to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he goes, Mr. Muhammad tells him, you come back, but you put these fires out. Mr. Malcolm go to put these fires out because he realized that the FBI and CIA had interrupted the work of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and tried to divide them. They had agents from the inside What are the agents? The agents from the inside are the ones that would distort the truth and would distort leadership, distort the administration. Remember, you got black people hired to kill black people. There's people that are part of the boule, part of the house slave, field slave that are sold out to buy in as a house slave, and they're going to do whatever it takes, whatever they have to do to keep getting money from that establishment, i.e., right, hint, get your hand out of my pocket, right? This is not the term that a Muslim would use because his purpose is not money. His purpose is to reestablish. That's what most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught, to reestablish the black community and create a form of wealth where black people could be able to establish themselves. He created a bank, right? So Mr. Muhammad wasn't greedy. His mind wasn't toward greed. That's not what he wanted. What he wanted was to establish wealth amongst black people, a common wealth, so black people could have a bank, could have a lending institution that they could grab things from, and that they could be independent as white people. And we got to come out from among them as black nationalists. We got to build up our own thing. What is Sister Ava Muhammad? What was she teaching? Same thing, brothers and sisters. Very same thing, teaching the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, right? Teaching the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. They try to separate Minister Malcolm from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Brothers and sisters, you can't do it. Minister Malcolm wouldn't be what he was without the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He wouldn't be what he was without the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And he remembered that to the day he died. Of course, the CIA and FBI tried to distort Minister Malcolm from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. But if you listen to Sister Betty, she's very adamant when she said there were other Muslims. She never mentioned the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Minister Malcolm, in a misstep, mentioned the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Then he took it back. He said, take it back, everything that I said about the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because these are things that Muslims can't do. The Muslims didn't poison him in France, right? It was not the French government that didn't allow him to come into France. It was the American government involvement that stopped him from coming in France, because France didn't want to be at odds with the American government, right? And we have to understand that. We got to understand it. So the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad was going to be stopped. Who else fell under that reign? Who taught? Who was under that danger? I'm just going to type their name down. Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. We have to write it down. Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, assassination. That's right, because he was assassinated. He was assassinated. Don't let anybody fool you. I go over these things because I know there are people now, right now, saying, well, he's talking about Farrakhan. I never said Farrakhan, but I could say that he was involved. Somehow, look, even indirectly, he's over the Nation of Islam teaching what Khalid supported, right? The same nation that Khalid supported. And he's there when these things happen to Dr. Khalid. When he's giving a speech, he's a Nation of Islam member. I don't care how you look at it or how you spin it. It is still an assassination. Brothers and sisters, it's an assassination. You look at who else? You have to look at Sister Ava as it relates to the Nation of Islam. We're going to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. too, and Robert F. Kennedy very quickly. We're going to talk about them very quickly because this is very important. But I want to group Dr. Ava Muhammad's assassination, Dr. Khalid Muhammad's assassination. There are Muslims right now that don't pay attention. Christians right now that are zealots that won't pay attention to see exactly what's going on. You have to watch what's going on. Jesus even said it. Jesus said, watch as well as pray, didn't he? He said that for a reason. When he's betrayed, who is he betrayed by? He's betrayed by people in his own organization. Who paid him? The people on the outside of the organization. The white Jews, one calling themselves white Jews, paid the black Jews, the black Palestinian, to destroy Jesus. Who did it? Peter denied him. Who else did it? Judas betrayed him. The other disciples turned their back on him. Isn't that right? That's all I want you to understand, brothers and sisters. All you have to do is see the white man. He hasn't changed. In his actions, he hasn't changed not one jot, not one tittle. He's doing it. He's doing it. He's doing it, brothers and sisters. And so, see, we've got to open our eyes and we got to open our ears, right? And open our minds to what's going on. He's doing the very same thing he's been doing for over 4,000 years, for over 300,000 years, even when he had the war of Carthage, which is Libya, and he came out of those caves through the Malta Canal. He came there to destroy you. And he came with every kind of plan he could to destroy you, all the way to organizing the slave trade in 1397, all the way to 1492, declaring that they wouldn't fight each other anymore, that they'll do more than that, they'll take over you. And you're still walking around like people who are groping in the darkness, though you're in the day. And all you have to do is open your eyes and raise your head up, and you can see everything that's happening in front of you. Everything that's happening in front of you, you'll see it. But you got to open your eyes and see it. You got to open your mind and see it. See, the truth is right in front of you. You got to accept it. Remember how the children of Israel were in Egypt, right? And there arose a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph. In other words, white people took over Egypt, right? You had blacks in the house, in the monarch, that were working with these whites. They had sold out. And so they said there arose a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph. This Pharaoh didn't have nothing to do with your culture. He didn't know who you were as a people. And what did he do? He obsessed you. Became a heavy tax master on you. What did Moses do? He said, look, Moses didn't want to be a part of this system. It had nothing to do with Africa anymore. Moses got out. As a matter of fact, he was forced out. And once he was forced out for killing that white Egyptian soldier, right? A Capion, a liar, right? A son of the devil, right? He killed a son of the devil. They had invaded our land. What happened? They forced Moses out. Once they forced Moses out, Moses found the truth. He went to the woods, right? You see black people in their wilderness years, this time of learning. And when they found out the truth, Moses found out the truth, brought it back from his father-in-law Jethro. He brought it back and he came with this new knowledge, right? But an old teaching. Let my people go. Right? And that's what the leaders are saying today. Let my people go. When they say come out from among them, we got to get out from among these white people. That's what they're saying. Let my people go to the establishment, brothers and sisters. And you have to understand that. That's what you have to understand. The assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And I know we're rushing now because I know we don't have much time, and I don't want to tire you out, brothers and sisters. Martin Luther King Jr. Look at him. And the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., we're going to cover that real quick because we have knowledge on these things, should have knowledge on these things, should be second nature to us. Should be second nature to us because these were the ones that were killed. These were the ones that were certainly killed. Martin Luther King Jr., born January the 15th, 1929, was assassinated April 4th, 1968. Why? He's American, a black Baptist minister. Right? Because he wasn't American. We're not American today. It's a black Baptist minister. Right? And this black Baptist minister, brothers and sisters, was the activist of one of the most prominent movement in civil rights, right? The most prominent leader in civil rights from 1955 until his assassination in 1968. Now, he really started in 53. So we should say 1953 to 1955, but for the sake of the Montgomery bus boycott, that perpetuated him to a national standard. So we're going to put in reality, right, 1953 to 1955, and I want to make sure that we put that. I want to certainly make sure that we put that because that's accurate. We want to have accurate information so you will have something to carry back to the brothers and sisters. I want you to have accurate information, and because it's the time out for us to become less learned than we are now, brothers and sisters. Very much time out. So we have to have accurate information because we have brothers and sisters that are studied now. So that was from 1953 to 1955. So we have accurate information of what's going on, right? Until his assassination in 1968. Dr. King was indeed assassinated. Why was he assassinated? For one thing was the Vietnam War, and the other thing was nonviolence and passive resistance against the Jim Crow laws, which are racism, system of racism, right? We talked about that, the system of racism. The government, you have to understand this, the government is all for this system of racism. The government is for it. And you'll find out, here King is one of the most peaceful, nonviolent leaders in history. So if you wanted to say that Minister Malcolm was violent, we'll say, okay, you want to say that, we don't believe it. Minister Malcolm had self-defense. He taught self-defense. But if you want to say that Minister Malcolm was violent, then we say, okay, well, Dr. King wasn't violent. Why did they kill him? What Dr. King taught went against the establishment. What is the establishment, brothers? We've been talking about it all night. The establishment is oppression. The establishment is racism. That's the establishment. And Dr. King was beginning to evolve into self-defense tactics. You see, Dr. King in 1955 is talking eloquent and an intelligent minister, trying to give a type of what would we say? What would we say? He was given a type of educational approach to the system of segregation. I would say that, a type of educational approach. But the more they begin to kill people, it begins to wear thin. The more they begin to kill us, it began to wear thin. So at that point, you know, Dr. King, he has the weapon arsenal in his house. If you look, if you type into Google, right, you don't have to be a genius to type it in. You type into Google that Martin Luther King Jr. has an arsenal of weapons. That's all you got to type in. That's all you got to type in. If you type that in, you will see that Martin Luther King was done with this nonviolent trap. It was a trap. It was a trap. They put him in a trap when they talked about nonviolence. The whole thing was a trap. And he was tired of being in this trap because he knew that they were going to continue to kill us. There's one, and one of the writings, King remembered, Dr. King said that that I've sent my people into a burning house. In other words, these devils are not going to stop killing us. He go and have a meeting with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in 1965, after the death of Minister Malcolm. March 1965, King goes to have a meeting with the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and said, look, we got to come together and have this mass movement. No problem. No problem, because the work is being done, and that's what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad intended anyway. He wanted to meet Dr. King. Minister Malcolm had set up this meeting, but he ended up dying, being assassinated before the meeting could take place. He ended up being assassinated. So we know the story, brothers and sisters. After that, there had to be a kill button pushed on Dr. King. They had to push the kill button, and they did push it. The FBI and J. Edgar Hoover, right, were paid by the government to spy on King. They couldn't find anything, but they began to set up a bunch of trap satires and things of that nature. And what I want you to understand, brothers and sisters, is that, and I'm about to shock you when I say Robert F. Kennedy, right, helped set these up. He was working for the government, right, and they had convinced Robert Kennedy that King was a communist, right? These young men were young. And you know, white people, they'll stick together. They believe white people when they first tell them, but then Robert Kennedy, after he studied Dr. King, realized that why Dr. King was a threat. He began to start talking to Dr. King about running for political office. This really begins to make the government say, look, we got to hit a kill button on this King fellow. He met Minister Malcolm against our judgment. We told him to stay away from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He meets Muhammad. We've got to do something about Martin Luther King Jr. And so Kelpo, again, COINTELPRO by Hoover, considered King a radical and made him the object of the FBI's COINTELPRO investigation from 1963 until his death. They put out these lies about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And disrespected his privacy, right? Went against the American Privacy Act. Why? Because he wasn't an American. I don't care how intelligent he was, brothers and sisters, they still considered him a nigger. You got to understand that. You have to understand that that term is an American white man's term. And I don't care how close you are to them, at one point or another, they're going to use it. They may say they're sorry. They may say they're sorry, but one point or another, they're going to use it. Is to keep, it's a catchphrase to keep you in your place when they feel that you're getting too high and mighty. It's a catchphrase to keep you in your place. They intended to make Dr. King commit suicide. But we know that eventually he was assassinated, what they said, by James Earl Ray. But in 1999, and we did the research on it, myself and Brother Steve Coakley, in 1999, Dr. King, out of the research of the King Affair that was sanctioned by Dr. Coretta King, Minister Martin Luther King's wife, the federal government was discovered to have killed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., which everybody knew it, but they paid the King family millions of dollars as a result of taking King's life. And because of the importance of Dr. King, and they realized the mistake that they had made by killing Minister Malcolm X and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And after Dr. King was dead, after he was dead, and some of the collaborators of that assassination had died, they began to put him on Front Street. You remember the news reporter, Gordon Parks, and the other civil rights news reporter? They put them on Front Street, said that they were working with the federal government to spy on Dr. King, take all these compromising pictures and things like that, spy on his wife, spy on the children, and all of that. And one time, they had been spying on Dr. King, trying to find some on him. Dr. King was with his wife, Sister Coretta, enjoying the time together, and they were taking these pictures. And in one of the pictures, they saw that it was Sister Coretta, and they tried to hide it, right? And by the time they sent the pictures, then it was obvious that it wasn't anybody but Sister Coretta. But they went to Sister Coretta and tried to say that Dr. King had been with somebody else. Luckily, she had remembered the clothing that she was wearing, and they put it in black and white and try to fade it out to make her think something was going on. See, this is the dirtiness of the government, brothers and sisters. The dirtiness of the government, right? It's not to say that Dr. King was perfect, but they tried to catch him in something that it wasn't involved in. Now, I also want to say this. Sister Coretta was so strong that she knew every move that Dr. King made, whether you call it righteous or unrighteous moves, she knew every move he made. He trusted her, and their relationship was of such nature that they discussed everything. And you have to understand that. And some power couples have that kind of relationship, brothers and sisters, when that sister understand the brother because he's vulnerable enough and transparent enough to listen to her. Now, he straightened all that up, because I want you to understand that he didn't sanction anyone going outside their marriage. He straightened it up. He began to teach against it, and he becomes a very strong leader at that point. They had to get rid of him. Same thing with Minister Malcolm. Minister Malcolm demanded a sanctified and holy relationship with your wife. That means that you only be involved with your wife. Anything else will compromise you. They sanctioned that. So, brothers and sisters, you have to understand that. I want you to understand that. Now, in the end, because we're down to the end now, brothers and sisters, down to the end, I want you to understand that, and it's important for you to understand that Robert Kennedy, in light of this, begins to understand exactly what's going on. You had the assassination, and this is the final point, of Senator Robert Kennedy. And this is by Sirhan, right? And they fixed all of this up. They fixed all of this up. Now, and I want you to understand something. In these assassination attempts, I want you to understand, it's very important that you understand it, that each of these people are black, white, right? In many cases, other. In many cases, other. Their race doesn't matter, right? The race doesn't matter. America is built on racism, but all the whites don't agree with racism. This is why you have this quote-unquote socialist movement. However, every white benefits from the system of racism, all unhealthy whites. If they're unhealthy, right? And what do I mean when I say unhealthy? Unhealthy whites are unwealthy whites. and all of them benefit from the system of racism because it's built on color line. So you could have the poorest white will be more important than the wealthiest black because of the color line and the system that America was built on. The final thing I want to say is this. The wealthy white has nothing to do with racism, right? Working class wealthy are concerned about racism. Like Donald Trump, he's a working class wealthy person. His dad had made it wealthy. His grandfather was working to make money, probably into his business. And then his great grandfather was basically poor white trash. So he had built himself up, right? And using every kind of trick to get there. Wealthy whites don't have to do that. They've got money and they have commonwealth and they're tied in to the monarch. So this is what I wanted you to see when you see the middle class and the working middle class. One is wealth tied to monarch, and one is wealth tied to American dynasty of working class poor who build themselves up to a working class middle class, got their own business or whatever. They still got to work to keep that precedence, right? The middle class wealth is gain wealth from commonwealth, right? Because of the name, because of the bloodline, the lineage, and that middle class wealth, which are the children of the monarchs, and their parents are attached to the monarchs, but they decide in these areas, since they're not in the ruling monarch class, however they are monarchs, they want some power for themselves. If you look at Princess Diana, she was a wealth class of England, right? Middle class wealth of England, who marries into the monarch wealth class, right? As a ruling monarch. Other than that, her dad will come from the monarch class, right? Recognized in the kingdom, right? His royal bloodline, he has position, but she herself, as a child, is recognized to that bloodline. So everyone knows her. She's considered privileged class. She's not in the ruling class until she married Prince Charles. She married Prince Charles, then she become Princess Diana. Now they put her in the ruling class. And if she was alive today, married to Prince Charles, and Elizabeth II had died, Queen Elizabeth, then she would have been on his arm instead of the lady that's on his arm today, his second wife. So I just wanted you all to know that. That's very important. So you have Robert F. Kennedy, who's known as RFK. This is the brother of John F. Kennedy. Little Bobby is what they call him. This is our final thing, and then we're going to close down, brothers and sisters. Final thing, and then we're going to close down. I want you to understand about this monarch and ruling class. Now, he is assassinated. He knows too much. Bobby Kennedy knows too much. The brother John F. Kennedy, because he asked Lyndon Baines Johnson, "Why did you have my brother killed?" He asked him the question. They're in a meeting. There are tapes of this. You can find it, brothers and sisters. You can find it. It's nothing new. You can find the same information. He asked him, "Why did you have my brother killed?" Right. Lyndon Baines Johnson hated John F. Kennedy and absolutely detested Robert F. Kennedy. That's a fact. They're fighting for what? Power. Robert F. Kennedy is symbolic to what? The royal line of the family through Edward Kennedy. They're attached to the affairs of England. So they're considered royals attached to the affairs of England. You have to understand that. This is important to know, because if you understand that, then you know that what was the thing with Lyndon Johnson. Lyndon Johnson was not wealthy, right? He was a teacher. He was the southern son of a farmer. He had gotten there with the popularity of the people as a politician, lying and manipulating through what? Racism, Americanism, which is nothing but racism, right? He had gotten there doing that, tricking people, right? That's how he got there. He was tricking people. So once he got in there, The donated wealth that came to him from who? People that he represented in that office. He was representation of the South. Ku Klux Klan and the South was running the United States with a majority of the Congress, in the legislature, the Senate and representative. They were in the majority of these places. John F. Kennedy originally ran as an independent, but the Democratic Party encourages him to run as a Democrat. He runs as a Democrat, he gets it. And when he gets the nomination, then he goes up against Nixon. He goes up against Nixon, President Nixon. Now, Richard R. Nixon originally intended to run against, who was also wealthy in his own right, another royal class, attached to the royal class. Originally wanted to, thought he was going to be in competition against Lyndon Baines Johnson, but the Democratic Party didn't want Johnson. As a matter of fact, they detested Johnson. They didn't like him. They wasn't fond of him, and they didn't think he'd have any class. He didn't belong among them. And that was the understanding, that he did not belong among them. So, you know, he took this hard. He took this hard. It's almost like, you remember when Ali fought, what was the brother's name? He was a hard body. He was a hard body. Not Ernest Shavers. Shavers did some damage on him too. I can't think of it right now, but we'll just say Frazier for right now. Frazier was a good boxer, but he was no Ali. The people, win or lose, the people loved Ali. The people loved him. Ali was a people's champ. He appealed to the people. It's the same way with the Kennedys. The Kennedys, everyone loved them. So much so that John F. Kennedy Jr. was assassinated based on the love and his potential to win the office. Again, his mother and father was attached to the royal line, connected all the way to England, right? They were attached to the royal line. And they had wealth, power, fame, fortune. And Lyndon Johnson didn't have that. And he was not loved by the people. They could see the racism in him. So he began to appeal to the blacks being used as a political football. And as a result of that, they voted him in after the death of Kennedy. They voted him in. He finishes out Kennedy's term of office. He voted in as one term of president, and he doesn't seek the office after 1968. He's so ruthless till him and J. Edgar Hoover began to fight, right? Hoover can't manipulate him anymore. He has a lot of information. He begins to blackmail, right, during the Nixon administration. And a lot of things that he wouldn't do. He was tired of office, just tired of all of it. Failure of the Vietnam War and his non-popularity when he leaves office. He gets more ruthless, right? Because you're dealing with men that are used to blood. And so, ironically, 1972, after, what's that, 4 years after he retires from president of the United States, he ends up dying in 1972. Ironically, he dies. When you look at him, he doesn't have the haircuts. He really lets himself go. He really does let himself go. And he's not, doesn't look like president material at that time. He's so hurt until he, at the unpopular outlook that he has with the Democratic Party, which he created on his own, with all of this manipulation and evil work. And they tied him in connection with the death of President John F. Kennedy. Now, and they were too afraid to say it over all these years. And now you have books coming out to say that President Johnson was the only one that had anything to really gain at the dying of President Kennedy. And to say also that there were many people. He was unpopular to the racist, poor class white, but very popular to the middle class white, both working class and wealth class. So, brothers and sisters, that's what we have. We've gotten through it. I appreciate you for being patient. Don't forget, brothers and sisters, please support us. The Cash App, I'll put that down so that you have that information. I always do. I pray that this time you can appeal to it tonight. Remember, we want to raise at least $200 tonight, and I hope we do need it for tomorrow. So I pray, my desire, my prayer, that you'll be able to help us in this. And so there's the Cash App. Also, if you want to buy a book, here's my email, brothers and sisters. And I hope that at the very top, I put the link in there so that you'll be able to find the book that you want. But here's my email. When you find the book that you want, please email me. Please do. And if you can't get to the email, just let me know in the comment section that you have ordered a book. I'll make sure that you get it through PDF, have it to you in a matter of seconds. But please bless our Cash App so we'll be able to send these materials out. Brothers and sisters, we're not begging. Remember, we're putting out information and we're doing it. What is our goal? Our goal is to liberate Black people so they have the knowledge and have an understanding why they need to liberate. That you're in a country that don't love you. They don't love us, right? If we don't have reparations, we don't have anything to gain from the oppression that you and I feel today. So just remember that. I want you to remember that, because when you begin to remember that, then we're well on our way. I won't have to worry about explaining none of this to you because you'll be ready. And also, brothers and sisters, I want to put down the link for the book. You can support us. Support us by buying a book. Certainly support us by buying a book from us. Right? We're trying to, again, raise $200 for tomorrow. So support us, please, by buying a book. And I'm going to put that link down there if I can remember it correctly. I'm going to type it in now. So you'll have the link. And we ask that you please, brothers and sisters, tell somebody to support us tonight to keep us going so we can keep what we have going. We believe it's important. What we're doing for the people. We give them free mental health. We were able to feed the children and whatnot, and I enjoy doing the work. And we certainly want to keep the lights and stuff on because we have the enemy coming against us. And when you're doing this kind of work, the enemy is going to come against you, and we need your help. We can't do it by ourselves, brothers and sisters. We need your help, and I appreciate your help. And I thank you in advance for what you'll already do. I pray that you will. And that you will get involved more than anything else, to be able to get involved. And to invite us to your city. We pray that any city that you want us to come to, if you can organize it, all we need is gas or fuel. It doesn't take much. I'm in a two-seater, and so I can certainly get there and save on fuel. And most of the time I travel with the sister, but we have a unique possibility of getting in the area, make sure it's safe so that the sister can get there. And so that's what I'll do, meet with brothers and sisters at our security in the nation as it relates to the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad and all of those Black Christian nationalists that help give us protection and be able to get the sister and my children there safely so that we'll be able to talk and give lecture in person and be able to meet you, brothers and sisters, and set up there the same system where our sisters and brothers can get something to eat, those that are on the streets. The wintertime is coming, and we could have some place that the brothers or sisters would donate, some building, purchase some old house that we can renovate so the brothers and sisters can be off of the street. And we can set up a small Muslim study group there. So you'll be able, some Muslim be able to teach them there, or someone that we can speak that will accept the word. They'll be able to teach there and be able to embrace the Muslim movements of those that want to teach the correct thing for our brothers and sisters. So that we'll be standing right and exact, brothers and sisters. And that is our desire and our prayer, that we could be standing there. And I put the link in so that you be able to support us. Remember, tonight, brothers and sisters, we're trying to raise $200, so we have it ready for tomorrow. And I thank you. And remember that this month was still trying to sell 10 books. We haven't sold 10 books yet. But tonight, we need $200 for tomorrow to be able to take care of the things for the facility. And I want to thank you in advance. Please, brothers and sisters, go to somebody else that you know and ask them to donate to us so we can continue this work and continue it in the safety of something that is for us and by us. We got to have a FUBU mentality here. Something that is for us and by us, so we'll be able to stand for the people. Brothers and sisters, if I didn't say it in the beginning, I want to say it now. Salam alaikum. And I do love you. I love you, and tell somebody that you haven't been in peace with in the past. If you can make peace with them, and they're in your bloodline, talking about black people, go to them and tell them that you love them, brothers and sisters. Make peace with them. And peace be unto you and unto us all. And I said in the beginning, I say now, as I leave you. Assalamu alaikum.